Welcome to the after party. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the. I'm not sure. I haven't settled on the title yet. Actually, this is being recorded before I post the actual episode. Something to do with maybe the word Middle East will be in there. Maybe World War III. You know, something engaging, something to catch the eye. There's only so much you can, get into it before the fun is ruined by somebody who just doesn't want to laugh. And I'll say this, if you're not intimately connected to someone who's there, or you're not from there, then don't expect everybody to heed your emotional and moralistic cheerleading. It's like the whole conflict is this terrible tragedy that, by the way, has been going on for a couple thousand years, is once again percolating. And if you come out on either side of the conflict, as in if you voice support, you run the risk of being, tormented by a mob. And the level of torment you experience is, I'm sure, relative to the level of importance you are within the culture, like famous people. They're going to go after that. And then it comes down to like people at work having to kind of not talk about stuff or not be, it's horrible. So that whole freedom of speech thing is great. And yes, they have the right to counter what you might say, but when they counter, it's really not to it's more to stop you from being able to say what you said. If it's not a very big part of your reality on an actual skin in the game level, keep it to yourself. Not keep it to yourself. You can express, but this idea that you need to punish anyone who doesn't feel it the way you feel it, because believe it or not, there's a lot of emotion in the Middle East. This thing's been going on for a while. So a lot of the way they think is based on emotion, or at least a lot of the people who claim to think about it are responding emotionally. And I guess emotions can be right and wrong and both at the same time. Not a lot of fun to be had, but here I'm jumping into what's supposed to be a listening experience, and I kind of hit a lull. And my next move is but. That's what I'm opening with. I'm opening up with nothing's been spoken between us yet, and I'm already countering with a but. I'm negating whatever it is you're thinking with what I'm about to throw at you. I'm a terrible listener. I was talking to this woman tonight, and everything she said sounded so dumb and sort of textbooky, kind of, because of the system and the oppression. She was complaining about a Taylor Swift song and video, and she was complaining about the colonialism in it. I'm like, are you out of your mind? The video apparently had Taylor Swift apparently in Africa in a setting wherein she had servants, and they were all black. And somehow this is, the same old crap, same old commie claptrap. And I said, well, were they slaves or were they servants? I don't know. Well, it's important if they're being paid to do a job. She's an employer. And, what color are your servants? Who cuts your grass? That's your servant. You only see him once a week. He comes with his friend. You're paying him to do a chore that you don't want to do. But she's in a video where, I don't know what the hell the song is. I don't know her body of work. But she's the woman I'm talking to couldn't pin down the exact time. She called it sort of colonial, and didn't sound like it. But that's what was on her mind. That's what had her, in the midst of talking about the Middle East, we got into Taylor Swift being a fascist colonialist. I mean, really? If you got that kind of time and, you want to wait to take down Taylor Swift, you got a good life. You don't have a lot of cares or worries. Man, I hope this is loud enough. I'm looking at I just finally looked up at this little, what do they call these? Not charts. Jesus. Wavelength, waveform. And it looks rather unimpressive. Not a lot of space, a lot of wide open space. But man, talking to this hairbrain tonight. And these are the people, similar, who are going to be coming after you for having the wrong opinion about whatever topic, whether it's the Middle East or Taylor Swift. They're trying to make it unfun to have an opinion, unpopular to have your own opinion. They're trying to enforce thought. And I've always hated that from any side of any point in the continuum of politics. We're all ants, but ultimately we're all ants in terms of the impact we're going to have. And other than just continuing the species, taking our part in that, the effect that any one of us is going to have it's going to most affect the people that we're close to. But on the world stage, we're all ants. And that's why the Arab-Israeli conflict is so much fun. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict is so much fun. It tells us we're all ants. This could, it could get really bad. It could spin into something really bad. Luckily, there's so many cool heads in that region of the world, it's probably going to be fine. They will prevail, those cool heads. One of the things that was in the piece that I don't know if it really came across, but it's just like these guys are all cousins, man. If you do tests on them, look at their DNA, they're probably all very closely related, or very few separate lines that probably occupy both sides of the fence, by the way. I know so little about the Middle East, though. Middle East. That's another reason I don't like to talk about it. My standard for what I'm required to know to talk about something is plenty low. But one of the things they always come at you with, whenever you talk about it, is that you don't know about it. You don't know what happened in the year 1240, And that's why I kind of step out. You're not at all connected to the people of 1240. Not even close. Few of us are connected to anybody past our immediate parents, if you're lucky enough to have them, in terms of how much headspace they take up in your, how much bandwidth they take up in your head. So the struggle of the year 4, it should be taken out of the equation for figuring out how to solve the problem today, because it is chicken and the egg type stuff as far as I can see. And I believe both sides are right, probably in that sense. They all have their grievances, and it's just a matter of how far back you're willing to go to claim that as one of your grievances. I'm glad I'm not from that part of the world. I'm glad I'm not emotionally connected whatsoever to that part of the world, nor am I to any other real part of the world, except for, the motherland. But unless you're bloodline or money lined into that region, you got, I don't forgive you the level of audacity it takes, not audacity, the level of self-centeredness, maybe, it takes for you to think you can impose judgment or attempts to silence me or anyone else. No. Go have your thoughts and go hang out with the people who think like you, and you can all, work each other up about it. But this, whatever this thing is, this Israeli problem with Gaza, Palestine, the region, that's not going to get solved after this. Whatever this is, when it ends, if there's a piece of paper passed over a table to say, thank you, we're sorry, when it ends, it's still not ended. It's just until the next time. So, I don't know, man. I feel bad for the people on the street, the people who have no say in any of this, who are suffering from it. But I don't put it any higher than any of the other historic conflicts going on all over the world. I don't rank it higher than whatever it was that went on between the Hutus and the Tutsis, or the Croats and the Slavs, or whatever. That's not my thing. I don't have family in it. I don't have blood in it. I don't have a history in it. And it would be just as out of place for someone to maybe overhear something I said at a restaurant about the Serbs and the Croats, and then getting up and, throwing a tantrum, unless they were from there, unless their father had died in the war, or their sister had just been, lost her legs. Otherwise, keep it to yourself. Go have your protest. Go stand in the street and wave your signs and chant with your friends. But this bullying of people who don't agree or think like you, nah, man. Nah, that's still bullying or whatever, If it's bad in one direction, it's probably bad in the other. But they all have they all have their God on their side, or their morality on their side, or their history on their side, or, whatever it is. Their oppressor status or their victim status. They've all got their pocket that they sit in this drama. But it's their drama. I don't know, man. I don't know if this is worth World War III. Think of all the things that happened in the year 403 or in the year 2000 BC, or whenever this crap goes back to. If they had the nuclear weapons and the means to literally destroy an entire country, as we do now, as the Israelis do now, because they have us in their pocket, or they did, if they had it back then, what would have stopped them from using it? It would have been just as crazy to do it then as it would be to do it now, only they'd be cutting off the 2,500 years of, evolution socially for humans. I don't think this is the kind of thing that ends until one side or the other dies out. And that's not saying either side should be exterminated. It's just literally, if it's oil and water, they are never going to mix. Oil and water will never mix until there will never be peace in that pond. Of course there will be, but they're never going to mix without one of them not being there. That's the crux of it, I guess. It's never going to happen. They do not mix. So it's this until they figure out a way to exist without this. Peaceful coexistence. God, this is horrible. I hate this. I was really, I had some stuff I wanted to do in this piece, and it became a grind about halfway through because the story just kept changing and getting worse. Although I'll say this much, it's a great week to be a headless baby. There's probably been no better week in history to be a headless baby, because first there was headless babies, then it was dozens, as many as maybe 40 babies had been beheaded, and thank God they're not real. They didn't happen. Those babies must be relieved to know that they are not headless, those headless babies. Doesn't that smell a little like the kind of stuff we've been through before? You know, the weapons of mass destruction, the incubators. And I know I'm not the first person to point this out, but that's what I thought as soon as I heard it. Something so horrific. That's like the babies on bayonets of the Hun, I believe. And, you know, maybe it's true. Maybe a baby or 2 or 100 got beheaded. I don't know. But it seems like what I've heard from what little I've heard, that turned out to not be true. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe just because you find a baby with its head blown off, you presume it was beheaded. There's probably a lot of babies that were be-armed and be-legged, too. But there's probably some wackos in that Hamas gang that would be glad to behead a baby. And I'm sure there are on the other side as well. You know, whether they're in the IDF or if it's just settlers or just a random wacko, would love to behead a baby. You don't even have to be in the middle. There are people you don't even have to be into a centuries-old blood conflict to want to behead a baby. Some people just have that in them. Some people just want to behead babies. You know, and I think diversity is our strength. I think we have to stop shaming people who like to behead babies. If that's who they are, if that's their lived experience. Maybe it's time we all stopped talking and started listening to the people who like to behead babies. But there's never been a better week to be a fictional beheaded baby. Because guess what? You don't exist. You're not real. Unless they can find some. Or unless somebody can create some. Or thaw out some. That little thing smells like basic propaganda, you know? There were lots of terrible things said about the Japanese in World War II. Wait, I should do that. There were lots of terrible things said about the Japanese, and then the war started. Something like that. Meaning the atrocities of the war are aside from the other reasons to despise the Japanese. It's the root of that joke, folks. If you're paying attention, if you're scoring, that's why that joke is funny. It implies there's something inherently revulsive about the Japanese aside from their atrocities committed in China in the 30s. And that's why I love that stuff. I do love downplaying absolute inhumanity. Downplaying it to me is always funny. And it's whether you're downplaying it for like nationalist purposes or to uphold some other abhorrent ideology. Downplaying the kidnappings and rapes for Hamas to support the ideology of that, you know, Western Christianity has ruined the world. Then you have to sort of accept some of those rapes as just part of the cost of taking down the patriarchy and destroying Western civilization, getting payback, really. I mean, once it's gone, it's gone. I think part of the problem is it's not Western civilization. I mean, it is, but it's civilization. Civilization advances and has advanced in different regions over different parts of time. And for the past, 1,500 years or whatever it's been Western civilization's turn. And I look around, I think we've done a pretty good job. You know, I'm sitting in a house that most likely won't collapse on top of me unless it's hit by someone's missile. You know, I can travel fairly safely, a relative amount of whatever amount of comfort I can afford, but certainly with plenty of lights and gas stations along the way. That's pretty good. Those are basic needs to be able to get to where you need to go, get there safely, and have a place to live and eat while you do all those things. And to have it be kind of the standard for most people, other than the insane, have some level of that met fairly well. Nutrition, place to live. Most people in this Western developed country, that gets dragged down. Those numbers can be shifted rather quickly. But that's a pretty good achievement, and it affects the entire globe. And with Western civilization, I lump in all of its boogeymen, capitalism and liberalism, conservatism. That's all part of Western civilization that makes the world a place to kind of have trade. Like you can get stuff, not just food and spices from a faraway land. You can get produced goods. And, for better or worse, you can even get their people without a receipt. Pretty good job, Western Civ. Now, Middle East, your time was quite some time ago, and you weren't able to work out your problems. You're still working on them. Get back to us when you figure it out, but please try not to blow the rest of the world up. My heart goes out to all the victims on all the sides. I don't say that as the thoughts and prayers kind of thing it sounds like. I really do. I would hate to be in your shoes. Man, I am grateful. I am not in your shoes. I did not grow up in your world. Aside from whatever conflict that you've had to live with in that region, it's just not my kind of place from what I can see. Kind of tribal. Everybody walking around in sandals. Sandals. I know that's not true, but I just love that as it's still worn. You know, the old sandals from the times when Moses threw down his staff, and we're still rocking those sandals. Whatever we were able to come up with way back then, it's just as good as what we could come up with now. Yeah, those boots that you have that protect you from the weather and protect you from getting stepped on by a camel. You got steel toe in there, that camel doesn't stand a chance. Sandals are just as good as that. Man, when I lived in New York, people would wear sandals, and I'd be going up those subway stairs and seeing just like these feet that looked like they didn't have a chance. You know, it's like watching a lamb walk in amongst the wolves. That's how their feet looked walking up and down the stairs of the subways. Just the filthiest, dirtiest, grungiest, barf scattered everywhere, and who knew when, in any given moment, you might get crapped on by a bird, barfed on by a homeless person, or step in something you never wanted between your toes. I never understood how someone could wear any kind of sandals or Birkenstocks or open-toed anything. And I give it up to the ladies that wore open-toe shoes. I do. I appreciate it. Hats off to you, ladies. Great job. Then again, you're probably not doing a lot of stepping over humans and crap in those shoes. Maybe you are. I haven't been out in a while. But the sandal is still as good today as it was back then. It's literally like the footwear equivalent of a commode, or what do they call them? The bedpan. It's like we've come a long way since the bedpan, a long way since the chamber pot. We've come a long way since the outhouse, but you're still wearing those sandals. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe your feet are cool. Your feet are kept cool by those sandals. But I've lived in cities and towns where the heat gets over 100 degrees in the summertime, and not like once, but like you can count on a span of that kind of heat. And it wasn't enough to make me start wearing sandals. I might go for the big flowy dress thing that the dudes wear there, whatever that's called, that big garment that's supposed to allow airflow, I guess. I might go for that. But the sandals, no, I'll still wear some boots or some shoes, cover up the feet. They're very tender. Now, if I had some sort of knobby, gnarly, crusty, crustacean feet that I imagine those guys have from rocking sandals in the desert for 75 years, it's like you're walking on tree bark. But my feet are tender. I'm a product of my level of luxury in life. I can actually scrub my feet clean, wear fresh socks. I am a pampered baby when it comes to foot accommodation. I'm sure there's the most expensive shoes in the world can be bought in Tel Aviv. I'm sure of it. Actually, I talk about it like it's Dubai, but you get my point. Actually, no, there's a lot of jewelers in that part of the region. Maybe I can get some diamond-crusted boots that will shut me up about the futility of wearing sandals. You got to be like Kwai Chang Caine to be wearing sandals. You need to be on some sort of spiritual journey and wearing robes to wear sandals in that part of the world. Man, it's crazy how they fight over it, the Holy Land. I don't know. There's the commitment I think I have to a land. It's maybe one of the greater commitments that I have, but it's so far below the immediate commitment of immediate family and personal survival. They have the passion over there. I wonder how much of that is just programmed. You grow up in a place where people are shouting at each other and have a 1,000-year-old feud. That's your level of normal. So it's not that crazy that every 15 years, rockets come and blow up everything within eyesight. I don't think what's going to happen to... Jesus, I'm tired. Can you believe I'm just blanking like this? I bet a Kardashian would have gotten the name right by now. It's just age, I think. Once you hit 35, everything starts to go. It's all starting to go. The West Bank and Gaza. Jesus, holy crap! I literally could not pull Gaza out of my melon. Now I forgot what the point of it was. It's not going to be pretty what happens to Gaza. Right or wrong, there's a lot of people that are going to never get to see that tomorrow. Whatever one they would have had, it's going to be taken from them. I know that sounds stupid. And it is stupid to rhapsodize about the horrors of it all. I know nothing of the horrors of it. I can't even imagine it. I've dreamed it. I've dreamed of horror. And even in the dream, it was the most, almost the most real emotion I've ever felt in a certain sense, where it became something physical. Like you can really love someone, but to have it like feel it crank in your body. Fear and horror can do that. Because I think the other emotions are expansive. Love isn't like you expand in your size or the space you take. Fear is like a shrinking, a crushing. Loss, it's a crushing. It's not a outward direction. Neighbor's air conditioner just turned on. Keep him cold over there. I wonder if I imagine if my neighbors heard the part of the video where I said I was going to kill them. All that would need to happen now is someone kill my neighbor and frame me, and they would have all they'd need for a open and shut case. It'd be the perfect setup. This guy was on the internet talking about murdering his neighbors, stuffing their heads in paint cans. Yeah, that would be the best if they actually stuffed my neighbors' heads in paint cans and I got wrongly accused. Oh, I was looking for a version of that where someone has been, we all know the syndrome. It's been in every half of the Columbo episodes. There's someone trying to set someone else up for murder. And I had the line in there about, originally the line was something like, blowing stuff up and blaming someone else is the allusion to September 11th. It's no longer done. Those days are no longer with us. But I felt like by saying blowing stuff up first took away some of the old switcheroo that comes from relating it to going from murdering your neighbors and somehow framing someone else for it to someone else being someone other than who's officially been blamed for September 11th actually being behind it. I thought that was funny, but I don't know if I landed that one. There's somewhere you think you have it, and if you don't have it, you think, well, I can definitely work it out, and what I can sell with footage. And some of it, you just walk away from it going, I don't know if that worked. And there will be plenty who'll say, no, it didn't work. But I don't value the opinion of people who can't create funny stuff. I just don't care. It's like, this person has never said anything funny in his or her life. Yeah, okay, you didn't get it, you didn't like it, that's fine. But you don't know what you're talking about. From your perspective, it didn't please you, and that's understandable, but that doesn't mean it's good or bad or worthy. Where was I? Israel. Yeah, played with that drone joke a bit as well. That's one I tried to sell with footage. I talked to a couple friends, who, when I said the word drone, they envisioned somebody who is someone who kind of goes on and on and on and droning. And I simply meant sort of the lifeless, soulless, beleaguered drone in the office drone sense, maybe more of a 90s sensibility for what drone connotes. And I tried to make it work. Probably didn't with anybody. Probably anybody under the age of 40 doesn't get it or doesn't think of that. They think of probably just aerial drones. But the sort of person who's walking through it, just getting through it, doing what he has to do, and he knows he's going to die, and he's already made peace with the fact that it's just going to be this until he dies. That level of being a drone, to somehow ascribe that to what it's like to be a Jewish husband is, to me, sort of a classic trope or a stereotype about Jewish men and their relationships. Look at Jeff Garlin on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David's show. I say that like you don't know what that is. That's pretty funny, too. But look at him. Isn't that his whole thing? He just sort of, I'm just going to go through with this. Yes, I'm successful. Yeah, I have these sort of personal cravings, desires, thoughts, emotions, and feelings, but I suppress them whenever the wife is around, and I dare not cross her, and I'm just going to work this thing until I drop, and that's okay. I've made my peace with it. That level of Jewish husband drone. So, I don't know if that makes that joke any funnier, but that's what I was going for. And I don't know, is that not a sellable notion that's a characteristic of certain Jewish men? Seems like it is. But any man really. But just like, the sort of what is often a stereotypical or characteristic relationship that a boy has with his mom, that sort of thing, or like the trope that teen girls are monsters, that sort of holds true for most people with their moms. Italian guys and their moms, Irish guys and their moms. Mom has a very important place in the psyche of a normal, healthy male, but it comes at a cost, as it does every relationship a man has with a woman, and whether it's your girlfriend or your wife. These sort of classic joke areas exist for a reason, and those reasons haven't changed. Those reasons have not changed. If anything, they've just gotten more disguised than clever. I think it's going to come back. Well, no. Once the institution of marriage is finally killed off by the godless commies, Wife jokes will be, it won't even be a matter of them being, I don't know, what's the terminology they would use, oppressive, misogynistic, patriarchal, blah, blah, blah. It won't even be a matter of that. It'll be like they don't get it. There are no mother-in-laws in the future. There's barely any moms. You'll be raised by some sort of bot. Eventually, you'll be raised in a vat. You'll be programmed with whatever thoughts they want you to have, and everybody's going to be happy. But the ladies have a very important part in all of this. Thank you, ladies. Thanks, Mom. Good luck, sisters and daughters, aunts, nieces. We wouldn't be here without you. God bless you. So unless you lost your aunt, your mother, your daughter, your niece in the conflict over there in Gaza, or in Israel, certainly, that was not showing any sort of favoritism in this terrible thing. And again, I don't say that because I'm not trying to piss somebody off. It's because it's true. I have deep, empathetic, and intellectual, sort of rational, reasonable connection to anybody over there that's dying from some freaking bomb that went off 2 streets over, and you get hit in the head with a rock that fell off, or you take direct fire from someone's whatever weapon the IDF is using or the Hamas is using. It looked like I saw some old school AKs in some of the footage I've seen, which is kind of surprised me. I think there are, and I only think this because of a couple of YouTube videos I've seen, there are sort of better versions of whatever it was that the AK was in its heyday, whether it was its durability, it's cheap to manufacture, its easy replaceable parts, its accuracy, its high rate of fire, all the positives that it had as a very crude, reliable weapon. There are apparently newer things that are more reliable and more amazing for all of those. It's kind of like the way the Glocks or other automatic pistols have in many ways superseded the 1911. But there's just something so cool about the 1911. That's the one I grew up with. I don't mean, owning, but just that's what the sidearm looked like on our boys fighting those Nazis. The officers that carried that sidearm, that's what it looked like. My little toy soldiers, that's the pistol they had. That's the one you wanted. You didn't even want a revolver. I grew up past the era of Westerns. Revolvers were cool. Dirty Harry made them kind of cool in a way, but that 45, that was badass. Way cooler than the Luger. The Luger had the appeal. It was kind of cool and it had a unique action on it. But apparently sort of because of its weight or other issues, not very accurate for shooting. I'm sure in close enough range it was perfect. You had to put a round into a Polish woman's head after making her choose which kid could get on the train with her. It did the job. But I don't know if it had to do with balance or something. Something about its design, like the rap on it was that it didn't have as much accuracy or was less reliable than some of the other standard issue sidearms. Why the hell am I talking about? So, well, it sort of makes sense. We're talking Arab, Israeli, Arab. They're Arabs. It's going to be interesting to see what other nearby countries are going to get thrown into this. Is everybody just going to take home a few 100,000 or 500,000 Palestinian refugees? How's that going to work out? When are they going to start bringing them over here? When are we going to have to start paying for this? This is a mess. But I guess it has to happen every 10 or 15 years, or whatever the line is that Clemenza says. It has to happen. It lets out all the bad blood. Actually, there is comedy to be extracted, even in the midst of the day-to-day developments. I still go back to however bad it gets, and it's bad. There are still people within that will crack a joke. It's just the way they are. I kind of feel like I'm one of them. I guess I am, but it's just weird. It almost sounds like a brag to say that you are, but it's not meant as a brag. It's just a reality. Some people scream when they're terrified, other people don't. And there are classic ways to react to any sort of external condition. And just from as far back as I can remember, the joke was always made. I don't know. It's not like to relieve the sort of, I don't know if it's that. I mean, it is, but it's just so obvious that you get tired of hearing people say that. They would tell jokes to relieve the misery of their lives. They would develop this great sense of humor, which I don't know if it's the misery, because there's miserable people all over. You don't think the Germanic tribes that swarmed Rome had miserable day-to-day lives? I mean, the pillaging and everything else, that was all probably fine, but just shivering in the woods in the wintertime, how about that? But only certain areas of the globe were, how do I say this? Well, let's talk about the Middle East if we're going to talk about certain areas. Certain places, certain people are known for their sense of humor. Do we know the tribes of the rainforest? Do they have a highly developed sense of humor? I think sense of humor probably evolves the way any other thought, the way communication evolves, humor evolves. It seems perfectly logical that if you're a tribal community and you're still communicating by banging rocks and clicking and painting yourself, your sense of humor is probably pretty limited. Like what constitutes something that's funny? Like do they have like funny dumb things I gotta do today lists or anything like that? all the all the whimsical stuff that your mother-in-law characteristically sends you, or your grandmother, or whoever it is. And nobody really sent me a lot of that stuff, but I do get the I guess it would be like the meme or whatever that is, the trope. I never knew what a trope was. I mean, I always knew what a trope was. I knew them as there's these things that sort of we commonly accept to be, a way to perceive and relay an information about an interesting structure of a joke or a story or something that's characteristic. I just didn't know the word for it. And I never learned the word for it until, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, if that. And now, well, when JJ was really young, he would be talking, oh, it's like that trope. I'm like, how do you know what a trope is? You're 7. Stop with the trope talk. What's a trope? But what's a trope? Don't speak not that word. What is it? It seems like the tropes are going to be true and with us for a long time. And guess what, Israelis and Palestinians outside of Israel and Palestine? I think most of the world views you as kind of the same. Take away your oppressor status. Take that stuff away. Who you are as actual people, not where you occupy on the hierarchy of worthiness, but who you are as people. A lot of people see you as kind of the same. The same way you might think of a Swede and a Norwegian as the same. They're the same. They're just fish-eating, white people. We kind of think of you as the same. Sort of like the Hutus and the Tutsis. They took that stuff pretty seriously over there. And the rest of us just said, yeah, okay, well, good luck with those machetes. Let us know who we have to buy the ore from, or whatever the hell it was we were getting out of your countries. It's no longer labor, so whatever minerals you have there, or diamonds, or magnesium, cobalt 428, pushing up my glasses, whatever it was you had that we cared about, we just waited for you guys to sort it out. I gotta think that somewhere the people in the West, who helped fund these wars, helped make them possible, whether choosing a side out of ideology to the other side, our opponents, or for direct exploitive reasons, we're giving you guys money to kill each other off so we can just continue to get the resources. There was a point to that, folks. Got lost. I'm trying every tangent. Trying to find the ones that work. It was about telling people apart. And it went off on a stupid rant. Not even a rant. I think a rant knows where it's going, at least. A rant is like, I got this thing I want to say. It's way over there. Now I'm just going to just stomp around and hit a bunch of walls, and then I'm going to land us there, and you're going to piece it all together. And that's my rant. Whereas this is like just hacking into the brush with a machete. Whatever's out there, I'm going to walk right into it or fall in a hole. And that was one of those holes. A lot of gaps tonight. Don't know why that is. I think it's because I just wasn't super connected to the topic. And I will be honest, this was a contractual obligation album. You hear about people, Hendrix, whoever. They have to put out a record because they owe somebody, 3 records, but they've plea bargained it down to 1 record to get out of a contract so they can go back to the other company they signed with who can now rip them off. It's not a contractual obligation, but I'm trying to get one out with some sense of regularity. And this one seemed like I could do that. I think I can. It's a rough area, and I like the challenge, and it'll be fun because it's fun to sort of clang the bars in that prison. But it does take it out of you. Might be different if I actually had a dog in the fight, outside of mere ideology. You ready for the lowdown? Here it comes. I think you've got one country is much more advanced financially, technically. They got a lot more going on over there in Israel than on the dirt patch they shoved the Palestinians to, or the British shoved the Palestinians to, whatever the story is. They got a little more going on, but I don't think it's based on maybe it is. Maybe it's the land they occupy. Maybe there's the water access. Who knows? Again, I do not claim to know anything more than I don't care when it comes to the Middle East. Just don't get us all blown up and sort it out. I'm going to say that over and over, like an old woman. Grandma always said, just sort it out. Don't get us all killed. Grandma always said that. Grandma was fatalistic. It would be kind of, cool is the wrong word, but sort of, it's kind of nice when the predictions of the intelligent who say, no, mankind, you're sort of Greek mythological role of, no, you're just a plaything for the gods. You'll never be a god, and this will all end. It's sort of like, some Eastern religions, this is all just temporary. Let it go. Let go of stuff. You'll at least get through this without as much rage and you probably won't die from whatever it is that's going on inside your head. I mean, there's people over there that are dying for what went on in their head. Those settlers really believed that it's a good idea to go take this land that the Indians still want back, and they still got their tomahawks, but I'm just going to go plant myself out there, and maybe I'll have some weaponry, but I'm going to be far away from everybody else, and anybody with a paraglider and a motorcycle can just take over my little homestead and wipe out my family, take my daughters prisoner, literally like savages. How about that, folks? Has anyone said that yet? Gentle reader? What went on, from what little I've seen, because I didn't really even hear about this until a day or two after it actually initiated, because I just kind of stay away from it, and I was taking the weekend off, and damn it, I had something. Shoot. I really had something, but I got into explaino mode, and it makes me sound like an idiot. It's just that when I write, I'm typing it as I think it, so even if I lose my train, it's right there in ones and zeros. This is just sloppiness. Like, oh, I'm gonna go chase this down this hallway. Oh, no, I'm lost. What hallway was I down? I had something that would have been more like a rant. I was headed to something, and I was gonna take you there, but I got sidetracked. So I'm sure I can't remember what I got sidetracked by. It's all it comes back because it's all coming out of the same oozing well of stupid. That's the thing. I was talking with someone tonight about each of our subjective realities being so wildly different, even within your relationship, within your household, within your family, the way you see the world. And you see the world as it is because it's what you're experiencing. And someone can tell you that 2 + 2 = 5, but from what you've experienced, it's 4. And night has a certain lack of light to it, and daytime, indeed, things are easier to see. That is your reality. But it is still wildly different from every other person's, other than the random person who has something, similar. But it has nothing to do with your skin color, where you're from, how much money you make, what God you believe in, what family you came from, none of that stuff. And I do believe the further away in either physical space or time you get from something, it's really less and less really part of who you are. I think who you are is made up of far less tangible or obvious things. Who you are is not your gender or your race. It's all the stuff that is you're spitting out of your little computer in your brain. All the stuff you're putting out is who you are. If you're putting out anger, if you're putting out love, if you're putting, those are the things you are. And all that stuff you're outputting is from all the other sort of external crap that you weren't even aware of that was happening to you along the ride. If you grew up in a house with a grandfather who did something terrible to you, even if it's in your distant past and you don't remember, you're carrying something that's going to shape who you are. And it could be the grandmother too. Let's not leave out the weird grandmothers. Sorry, Grandma. If you're one of those weird grandmas, I didn't mean to leave you out. It could have been you who did that terrible thing or that wonderful thing. The point was, good or bad, those are the things that shape you. It's not, well, because I'm a Christian, I am this. What I believe is this, but what you do, the stuff coming out of you, will tell you if you're a Christian or any other faith-based identity. If you adhere the faith, if you follow the ways, you will be the thing. Everybody wants to be the thing. Fit into the little colony and fit in. Have your place. Tear yourself apart inside your head for the 80 years you're here. And then you will go away and you will be forgotten. Like that tiny little pixel. Like that little scale that falls off the fish. Plenty more where that come from. And in an existence where we are, just plenty more where that come from. I'm only going around once. I'm not going to give that life and death commitment or connection to very many things. Self-preservation, protection of a family, and from there, it's immediate friends, family, friends, neighbors right around me, that next ring in the sort of communal circle. It takes a lot to get me out to that very outer, well, this is my faith that's being attacked here, or this is even my country. Because you can hate someone from your own country, but suddenly the collection of people in your country is more important to you than anything else. What percentage of people do you hate, or think you hate, or just not want to have to deal with? You don't want to be around anybody, It's fractional, the number of people you can even stand compared to the population you live in. Because everybody else is just traffic, or someone dumping crap on the ground, or making a mess. You're never going to even meet them. So what are they of value to you? So it would take a lot for me to even stay where it was generational bloodletting, extermination of the kind that, oh, that's where I was headed? Who's said that yet? That literally, I sound like a 14-year-old. That, I almost lost it again. It's planted now. I won't lose it. I can come back to it now. I know exactly where I was going. It was that, the Palestinians being the Indians has been said before. And, the Israelis being the sort of, not cowboys, but certainly the land takers who've come and settled the land and drove off the indigenous folk, with superior firepower, technology, money, commerce, whatever it was. I don't know, man. Don't throw me in too deep into your conflict. But they're the cowboys. But this was like, this first terrorist attack was like one of those scalping raids. Just like, you could have done, you could have put that over any of the footage of what was going on with the Hamas guys. It looked like these are the range savages attacking the civilized people. Sorry, but that's what it looks like when a guy that's kind of camoed out and headband and flowing, whatever those headgear they wear they look like a tablecloth. No offense, I don't say that to insult, but they do look like tablecloths. Wearing some version of that scarf, whatever those things are. It looks very tribal, and they got their relatively crude weapons, their AKs, a couple of RPGs, and they're just raiding homes. Kind of like what's happening in South Africa, here tell. God, this is so painfully unfun. This is supposed to be a party. Who talks like this at a goddamn party? Anybody who gets bogged down in trying to solve the Arab-Israeli crisis. It's a pit. It's never going to get fixed. Unless human nature takes a dramatic turn, because that's what it is. It's a matter of human nature. You desecrate my God. It goes back 5,000 years. It could be a sports team at that point, This is the bunch of people that a gang. It could be a gang. It could be a sports team affiliation. Your group that you run with, that you live and die for. Well, I think Western Civ was against that. It was about the personal enlightenment. There were the theists and the atheists. You learned to read and organize your thoughts and read the Bible to develop the relationship with your Christian Western God, or you pursued a life of individual liberty. Whether it was because you knew you were only going around once or whatever the justification for it was. I haven't read enough of all the great Enlightenment writers. By read enough, read nearly zero. But it was about your individual fulfillment. And I don't mean hedonistic. I mean becoming the most you could be in your craft, in your business, in your thought, in your humanity, in your humility, in your devotion to God. It was about excellence. And it expands from the individual to learning to make, cultures, civilizations. What do I know? Jeepers. I hate this. This is not fun at all. I'll turn the mic off and say some really funny stuff about the Jews and the Palestinians. The Jews. The Israelis. There's a lot of Israelis. By that I mean, the American Jews and the Ashkenaz, they're a little different than the ones over there in the thick of it. That's that proximity effect. Or what would the word for the opposite of proximity? The distance effect, but that doesn't sound cool enough. That effect. Yeah, we know it's real. Just like I know the Eiffel Tower is real, but I've never been there, I've never seen it, I can't reach out and touch it. It's nothing more than something floating around in my head. And that, to me, is the Arab-Israeli conflict. And I'm lucky for it. Don't mistake this as gloating. No, I'm lucky. I'm grateful as hell that I live nowhere near that level of destruction. I mean, we might get to live that way here in this country. We might get to that point. We could get to that point where it's blood war for whether it's haves versus have-nots, workers versus capitalists, black-brown coalition versus the Western colonizer. It could be along those lines. In fact, it probably will be. Because anybody with a brain, I think, would arrive at the place of, well, that struggle has a certain level of importance to me in so much as it helps me fulfill my life as an individual. My dedication to the United States or representative democracy or even the capitalist system, it has as much to do with my own personal benefit as some sort of ideological purity. However pure you might be with your ideology, if it doesn't work for you or for others the way you claim it should, listen up, communism, then you drop it. I support, the idea of America with its many, many flaws. I think it's part of getting older. I'm feeling more lucky to be here. And I happen to be here. Not to romanticize it too much, but, home of the brave, land of the free. Wait, stop, reverse that. Thank you. I appreciate it. But if it didn't work for me, if I lived in a Omega Man level of zombie wasteland and crime in the streets and, hoarding supplies and gunning down intruders, shooting first, asking questions later, then I wouldn't support it. I'd say this doesn't work anymore. I can let go of allegiances and whole areas of thought if I feel like it's not working. And it is a personal thing. I come first, then my loved ones. then we start talking about greater bodies of humanity. Because when you drive down the street, you hate them all. If you don't, you're a much better person than I am. And I say hate them all. I don't hate anybody, but they are an annoyance. They're like, in terms of their importance to me, they're like mosquitoes. I'd like to just swat them out of my way, but I don't. I try to be a gentleman. I think that's the only way it works. We all have to pursue that path, where it literally becomes it becomes everybody shooting at each other. I spend a lot more time waving, hey, sorry, yep, my fault, even when it's not. Like, hey, yep, sorry, no worries, more than I used to. When I was a younger idiot, I'd give the finger, I'd beep the horn, I'd do all that stupid nonsense, Every now and then I do a little bit of that, and that's not to say it's good. I fully understand how stupid it is to do that, but it gets the better of me. Someone does something really stupid and you get enough of a look at him, you think like, well, I can probably flip this person off and not get shot. You take that opportunity. I look now. I don't just reflexively just zip by with the finger going. I make sure that I think I can get away with this before I do it at all. And it's far less common now than it was when I was younger and dumber. So my willingness to put my life and my pursuit of happiness on the line for an ideology or a state, it ends when it no longer lets me pursue my happiness. And I think that's reasonable. You got to be willing to work and sacrifice so that we can all achieve this, provided your cost isn't too high and you roll the dice that maybe your cost will be the one paid and hopefully they'll remember you for it. I wish those, I'm sorry, folks. Oh, well, the good news is nobody's listening. That's the good news. Not much of a party. A lot of kids, even fictional beheaded kids. You got to wonder, the person who might make up a story like that, and maybe it's not made up, maybe it's just a misunderstanding, maybe there are a bunch of dead babies with no heads. But if it were someone making up that story, it's very easy to overlook how profoundly, how it flirts with the most profound levels of dehumanization. Not to overstate it, but conjuring headless babies and ascribing that to someone, it's got a level of warm, gooey, sticky bloodiness to it. To behead a baby and to conjure that as your weapon of psychological leverage, that's a real disturbed place to come from. I mean, I get its utility, certainly get the utility of it, but that's a really disturbed place to come from. What is the most ghoulish, inhumane thing we can fill their head with, poison their visions with, squeeze their soul with? Intentionally decapitated babies, the most innocent of innocent, aside from the millions we kill in the womb every year, the most innocent of innocent, decapitated babies. Oh, that would have been a good area to go for a joke. Like if I were a hardliner on the abortion Christian question. I mean, in a certain sense, I'm a hardliner in thought, but I understand I'm just one person in a world where this stuff goes on, and there's only so much of my time I can dedicate towards the eradication of really a terrible, terrible thing, the widespread murder of humans who just happen to be, fetuses and or tiny, tiny proto-babies, but they're still humans. But to say, I'm going to take the most precious thing, the most innocent thing there is, and I'm just going to I'm going to burn it, I'm going to defecate on it, I'm going to hammer it, I'm going to gouge its eyes out, I'm going to cut off its head, I'm going to stick its body on a pike, and then throw it into a pit of feces. And I'm going to do it a bunch of times, because I'm right and you're wrong. That's just a not weird, it's just a ghastly place where if imagine if you're Hitler's propaganda guy. Goebbels, was it? I confuse my Nazis sometimes. Just the obscene place his mind lived. It's beyond the sort of the maligned capitalist who can look the other way while the gears crush thousands of servants who may or may not be getting paid in a Taylor Swift video. It's much more malignant than that. It's like, no, it's, we hate them, but we're also going to systematically exterminate them. Like we were getting rid of bed bugs. We're going to gas them. We'll sweep up their remains when we're done. That's a really, 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 I can't imagine. Where does that mind live in its thoughts day to day that it can be part of that? And yet I'm sure it's got to be nothing more than a sort of heightened version of the kinds of passions that I don't want to say rage, but the kinds of passions that are on both sides of the current conflict in Gaza. If I had to put my money on who's going to come out on top this round, it would be the tribe, the juice crew, as some call them. They got the tech. Tech tends to decide these things, whether it's rifles over sticks or directed energy beams over rocks and drones. Tech can rule. Don't know about much tech in Gaza. Maybe I was surprised when I saw the destruction going on of the cities in Gaza. I was actually surprised that they were as built up as they were. It looked like no building was more than 7 or 8 stories tall that I saw. Those were skyscrapers. But it looked much more densely populated and built up than I would have thought. Psychologically, historically, in my mind, Gaza seems like the land of mud huts in how it's nothing more than a reservation for the displaced indigenous people. I was enlightened to see the kind of structures Israel was knocking down with their missiles. It would be kind of cool to sort of generate CGI Godzillas walking through the Gazan cities, and it looks like Godzilla's knocking the hell out of these buildings. That would be a fun use of your time, weird sadists out there, but it would be pretty funny. Not because of the human life lost, but because of the downplaying of the human life lost. That's the way people cope with the grisly nature of man's inhumanity to man. You downplay it. You make light of it so that you don't have to lose your mind thinking about it. And I think that's a great way to end this one. Don't lose your minds over this. If you're not there with skin in the game, don't lose your mind. We don't want you to, and we don't want to put up with you when you do lose your mind. And if you do have that much skin in the game, then you should probably be over there anyway, putting your skin in the game. I'm not in favor of the, as I said, the carnage that's coming, that's here, that will only get worse. But it's theirs. And there's the uplifting note. See? Something uplifting there? Something to feel good about? It's their carnage. Well, we tried on this one. I think we can salvage something out of it. Put a little paint on it. Thanks for listening.